Yeah, oh no. Oh, guys, I think they just hit us with the, with the hammer. Oh, we say Peppa, she's running. She's running. She's killing people. Hey guys, today we are watching Peppa Pig. Subscribe to our channel. Series.
As raindrops hit the window, Peppa's family was gathered indoors, enjoying their time together. They were expecting the rain to pass soon and discussed how fun it would be to jump in muddy puddles the next morning. Little did they know, a devastating loss was about to strike them. That day, as everyone was getting ready for bed, the rain continued to pour throughout the night. In the morning, an excited Peppa ran out of the house, ready to jump in muddy puddles. However, as she stepped outside, she noticed that there was a massive flood surrounding their home, with no other dry land in sight. Daddy Pig did not expect this either, and jumped out of the house right into the water. It was the worst flood the Peppa Pig family had ever witnessed. As they discussed their situation, they realized that their mobile phones were not working, leaving them completely isolated. Unable to swim, and with nowhere within walking distance, they decided to wait it out. Mummy Pig started to prepare breakfast, but discovered that there wasn't much food left. They had been planning to go to the supermarket that day. Mummy Pig estimated that they had about 2 days' worth of food left. She also predicted that in 2 days the water level would recede enough for them to walk to their neighbors or for help to arrive. However, as the next night fell, more rain poured down, causing the pig parents to worry. The water level hadn't decreased at all. By the end of the second day, the situation was the same. On the third morning, there was no improvement. No help had arrived, the water hadn't subsided, and they had run out of food. There was nothing left for breakfast. George took a few sips of ketchup from a bottle just to have something in his stomach. On the fourth day, hunger began to take its toll. Peppa, weakened by exhaustion, started to feel sick. She had contracted some sort of illness. George and the parents were holding up well. By the fifth day, Peppa did not leave her room anywhere. The parents could endure not having food, but they were afraid for their children. In addition to hunger, they suffered from utter boredom. Towards the evening of sixth day, George too fell ill, his young body unable to handle the lack of food. Parents was crying that day, which upset George, feeling powerless in the situation. George woke up on the seventh morning to a strange smell coming from the kitchen. His parents told him that they had found some food for him, his first proper meal in 5 days. It was strange food, unlike anything George had ever eaten before. The texture was soft and chewy. Perhaps it was the extreme hunger, or perhaps it was the taste itself, but he found it delicious. The parents watched him with empty stares. Suddenly they heard a voice from the street. Grandpa Pig had arrived in a small boat bringing food supplies. He was relieved to find his family, but it was too late. The family was now missing one member. This terrible day started with an unremarkable rain. Peppa and George were waiting for the rain to end so they could go outside to play. They did not yet know how this day would turn out. They waited for the sun to come out and asked their parents if they could go for a walk. When they left the house, they found puddles left by the rain and started to jump in them, as they had done many times before. However, that day they decided to try to find the biggest puddle. They walked further and further away from home. They went so far that their parents could no longer see them. George saw a big puddle and wanted to jump in it, but Peppa stopped him. She wanted to make sure the puddle was safe enough for him, but she didn't think about her own safety. That was the worst mistake of the day. Her whole body sank into the puddle. A nose was barely visible on the surface of the puddle from the recently cheerful pig. George couldn't contain his horror and started to cry. He realized that help was needed as soon as possible. He could hardly remember the way home and ran in the random direction. After some time, he did not notice a puddle under his feet and fell into it himself. He was pulled up to his waist in mud. He couldn't get out no matter how hard he tried, but the upper half of his body was free. All he could do was scream and call for help from the puddle. Because George had run too far away from his parents, they couldn't hear him. An hour after Peppa Pig and her brother went for a walk, Mummy Pig started to worry. She talked about it with Daddy Pig, and they went out to look for their children. After 20 minutes of searching, they reported their children missing. After that, every resident started looking for Peppa and George. The search lasted for several hours, and even helicopters were involved. George was the first to be spotted by Daddy Pig, who heard faint cries for help, approached, and saw him. George was in a state of hypothermia. He had caught a cold from the damp and was exhausted. Daddy Pig pulled him out and tried to find out where Peppa was. George himself has slurred speech due to his age, but because he had been in the mud for several hours, all that could be understood from his speech was that something terrible had happened to Peppa. Then George slowly started walking in one direction. He stopped at the same puddle where Peppa got stuck. There was nothing on the surface of the puddle, as there were no footprints nearby. Since then, no one likes to jump in muddy puddles anymore.